Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we're discussing the expansion of Ultramar's Tetrarchy to the wider Imperium, as we ask if the other Primarch lineages would be suitable for the role. No real need for a spoiler warning today, but just keep in mind we may reference events from across the Warhammer 40k universe. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Okay, so earlier in the week we discussed Guilliman'S implementation of the ancient Tetrarchy positions to Ultramar. In a nutshell, disappointed at the corruption and greed of governors and people in power, Guilliman decided not only to drastically enlarge Ultramar's borders to its ancient size, but to also split this empire into 5 areas. The core remaining controlled by the Ultramarines and Marneus Calgar, and the outer 4 areas each now controlled by an appointed Tetrarch. Various chosen captains from across the line of Guilliman, the Ultramarines chapter and their successors. Whether the Imperial worlds within these regions liked it or not, the Astarte Tetrarchs were now in control. They had the power, with Guilliman's full authority, to do whatever they wished to improve the Imperium. And as controversial as this may be, let's be honest here, with the amount of self-serving, greed-fueled, corrupt Imperial planetary governors and rulers out there as there are, it makes sense for Guilliman to do this. And so, assuming it proves to be a success, it does raise the question of this expanding to the rest of the Imperium. Guilliman forcibly taking control into the hands of the Astartes Imperium-wide. The only way to really ensure the Imperium operates as it was originally intended. And if he does, he would absolutely have to use other Astartes bloodlines for the positions of the Tetrarchs, to avoid a revolt against it, and just simply to keep the sheer political pressure down. And before we go any further, yes, I know Tetrarchy and Tetrarch refers to 4. However, we don't have another term, so we're just going to use that going forward. So, would the other bloodlines be able to be Tetrarchs? Guilliman clearly stated he has complete faith in all of his successors, his sons. But what of his brothers? Well, let's begin with the Blood Angels and their successors. Despite having to contend with the flaw, the Sons of Sanguinius for me would be one of the better suited lines to handle this kind of role. No, they aren't the natural statesmen or politicians the Sons of Guilliman are, but they do still possess the balanced qualities of the Angel. His rationale, his compassion, his sense of duty, his ability to communicate across the divide, his inspiration, that natural ability to inspire the people. Don't make the mistake of thinking it was just the Angel's wings that gave him that effect, for it wasn't. The wings made him a symbol, but it was Sanguinius, the man, the qualities he had, that stoked the hearts and minds of those he encountered. And you can definitely see some of those qualities distilled down to the likes of Dante today. More the communicator, commander aspects than the pure warmth of his Primarch, but still they are there. Clear signs of his legacy. And actually Dante provides a good showcase of how the Angels would make the tougher decisions when needed. Which an Astartes having to take command of a region of space, multiple systems and worlds, facing opposition, would have to do. This is the guy shouldering the mantle of Warden of Imperium Nihilus after all. Which, let's be honest here, in Guilliman giving him that, surely proves he sees those same qualities still within his beloved brother's sons. So I definitely think the line of Sanguinius would be up to the task, and that Guilliman would see it that way too. Again, the flaw is an inconvenient truth, strong enough in some chapters that it'd rule them out of such responsibilities entirely. But obviously, Guilliman would only be selecting the most suitable of candidates anyway, so I wouldn't expect to see any Tetrarchs from the Flesh Terrors, for example. Moving on, what of the Dark Angels? Now, this is an interesting one. Historically, in some ways, they share many similarities with the Sons of Guilliman, as much as both Primarchs would hate to admit it. A strong sense of honour, of duty, of what's right, what's wrong, an unquestioning loyalty to the Emperor. In the days of the Crusade and Heresy, they would have been perfect for the role. However, like the line of Sanguinius, the repercussions of the past has left its scars on the line of L. Johnson. The Unforgiven's pursuit of the fallen has led to the line of L. Johnson committing truly heinous acts over the years. Slaughtering innocents, slaughtering allies, simply to keep their secrets. It's undoubtedly cast a great shroud of doubt over the former glorious Legion, and their 10,000-year hunt has seemed to have left an almost tangible sense of paranoia in regards to keeping their dark secret too. The qualities of the First Legion remains within each and every son of Lion L. Johnson. They are absolutely capable of serving as Tetrarchs, bearing that responsibility. They may be a little more matter-of-fact than the line of Guilliman, a little more uncompromising, but you could rest assured whatever region was controlled by them, it would be swiftly brought into line, and corrupt governors or dignitaries would be removed without hesitation. I have no doubt Guilliman would see them as capable, especially so now his brother has returned. And maybe that is the defining factor, because I think it's impossible Guilliman hasn't encountered the rumours and reports of the Unforgiven's actions over the centuries. And so if it wasn't for the Lion's return, I think it would undoubtedly mean Guilliman would probably prefer to have more of the other lines instead of them. That he would have previously kept a far more watchful eye on those Tetrarchs than others. Not because he'd doubt their loyalty, simply to ensure there's no more mysterious reports arising. But again, with his brother L. Johnson back, I think Guilliman would be far more ready to use the Unforgiven than previously, knowing that no matter what, the Lion would demand and ensure their duty done. The people protected. It'd be very interesting to see what Guilliman made of the difference in the Unforgiven from the First Legion he used to know. They've always been secretive, but I think he would have noticed the subtle change. However, as for the Tetrarchs, the line of L. Johnson could quite clearly be capable of the role, and in a little more of a no-nonsense fashion. Now, the Imperial Fists, the line of Rogal Dawn. Another easy choice for Guilliman here in my opinion. Possibly the zealous Black Templars aside, the line of Rogal would be perfect for the Tetrarchy. Taking command, removing corrupt rulers, and ensuring strong defense, developing the worlds. They'd do all of that with a cup of tea in their hands. Again, they share many similarities with the line of Guilliman, but with a better trait of building, and a little less desire for the role of a statesman or politician. They wouldn't particularly enjoy having to deal with all the tedium of interacting with all the various governors and institutions, but they'd absolutely get the worlds better prepared to defend themselves and serve the Imperium. Like their exemplifying of the Codex after adopting it, once given a responsibility, the Sons of Rogul just get the job done. I think out of all the other bloodlines, the Sons of Rogul would be Guilliman's easiest and probably first choice. Despite his coming fallout with Rogul in the Scouring, he knows what his brother's sons represent, and he clearly sees the similarities there. He'd possibly even consider using Black Templar marshals for strongly populated ecclesiarchy subsectors. The line of Rogul, an easy choice. Moving on to the Iron Hands, the line of Ferrus Manus. Now this I think would be a trickier one for Guilliman. For all his respect for Ferrus during the Great Crusade, it's inescapable how far the Iron Hands have fallen to the machine, departed from their humanity. Sure, they still embody that endurance and resolve of their Primarch, the determination that, once set, will see them accomplish any task. However, so often now their actions are guided by simple numbers, by calculations, not through a sense of what's right, what should be done. Now perhaps you could argue that would make them the perfect overseers of territory, able to rise above the lesser politics that so often muddies the water. And I can see some sense and logic to that. An Iron Hand ruled territory would surely be the exemplar of efficiency. However, it's not simple production values and efficiency that Guilliman is seeking with the Tetrarchy. It's also the enlightenment, the improvement and development of the worlds, the replication of the beacon of light that Macragge is, and that Terra used to be. I think that's an aspect that could fundamentally go missing in an Iron Hand Tetrarchy. If a governor was still perceived as efficient by the numbers, despite its people living in squalor, there's a good chance the Iron Hand would deem that acceptable. If a world was evaluated to never being able to reach a certain score or quota level, whereas Guilliman would still want that world developed, the Sons of Ferrus would deem it illogical, a waste of resources, and most likely simply move their resources elsewhere, where they could be better served. And so that just misses a vast portion of Guilliman's objective. Now, not all the line of Ferrus is so far gone down the path of the machine. There are always exceptions. However, I think we do have to accept, as with all the Primarch lineages, the traits are strong and consistent throughout. There'd be big advantages in relations with Forge Worlds, Mechanicus heavy systems. However, the Adeptus Mechanicus is their own power, and Guilliman has adhered to that since his return. So the Tetrarchs would have no claim over them. So although I think Guilliman would have to have members of all lineages as Tetrarchs should he ever expand it to the rest of the Imperium, I think the line of Ferrus Manus would be one of the harder choices, and definitely one of the least suited. Now, a line that wouldn't exactly relish the idea or be particularly suited to it would undoubtedly be the Space Wolves, the line of Leman Russ. I can't think of much a son of Russ would despise more than having to play politician, governor, overseer, all in one go. The Space Wolves thirst for adventure, the thrill of the battlefield. They don't want to be trawling through reports and inspecting worlds across a subsector. They want to perform their duty to the Allfather and defeat the enemies of mankind. They don't particularly have the temperament for the role, and they aren't particularly interested in building and development coming from the feral death world of Fenris. Sure, there's more chapters out there now, so you'll most likely find more refined chapters in the Legacy of Russ at some point. But on the whole, the Sons of Russ are quite possibly the least suited to this kind of position out of all the loyal lines out there. And really, the biggest reason of all is because they just have no interest or desire in it. Could they perform the role? Yes, but they'd hate every single minute of it. Moving on to the Salamanders, the Sons of Vulcan. Well, in a bloodline renowned for caring for the people, you could easily envisage the Sons of Vulcan embracing this kind of role. And I think they'd obviously be particularly good at wanting to improve the lives of the populations, removing rulers who had lacked in their duty. They don't necessarily have the strengths for the position like the Sons of Guilliman, or even maybe the Sons of Roguel, but I think you could easily rest assured that any Son of Vulcan would always be putting the interests of the people first and foremost. Almost the complete opposite to the Sons of Ferrus in a way. Whereas they would look solely at the numbers, the Sons of Vulcan would look at the impact on the people. Maybe that doesn't make them the best suited, perhaps being a little too hesitant to make the harsher decisions. But again, with Guilliman's desire to raise up the people, just as much as to shore up the defense, improve the running of the worlds, I don't think there'd be too much hesitancy in selecting a Son of Vulcan for the position. Moving on, the Sons of Jagatai Khan. Well, the strong tribal nature and desire for freedom makes them, like the Sons of Russ, not particularly well suited in my mind. And I don't think they'd particularly enjoy it either. But I could see them performing the role if tasked it. I'd certainly enjoy seeing a corrupt governor trying to argue his case in the face of a White Scar. They wouldn't mess about in that regard, that's for sure. Maybe their biggest difficulty would come down to their philosophy of war. They care for the people. They know corruption when they see it. But for war, they desire freedom, speed. They aren't naturally suited to building defences, shoring up a system's fortifications. Yes, they can do it. Of course they can. But it's just not their way. Their affinity. And so, while they could perform the role, again, there's absolutely better suited bloodlines out there. Can you imagine if Jagatai had been the first Primarch to return and not Guilliman? Oh, he'd absolutely have hated all the stuff he'd have to have sorted out. And well, so would his sons. It's just not their way. And so finally, that brings us to the Sons of Corax. Now, as much as the foreboding aspect has overtaken the line of the Raven Guard, I actually think they'd be pretty good at the job. While never his preference, Corax could be a pretty good statesman when he needed to be. He was always fair, balanced and rational in his decision making, and his sons have absolutely retained that today. While Deliverance is immersed in shadow, they know injustice when they see it. They know how a world should be run, and they aren't eternal battlefield seekers akin to the lines of Russ or Jagatai. They love the shadows, but they know that's their domain, not everybody else's. So they know how to fortify when required. They know how to advise, think outside the box. So for me, I think Guilliman would have no qualms about selecting a son of the Raven Lord. He had a pretty good relationship with his brother during the Great Crusade. He knew the qualities he represented. and he would see them still in his sons today. Are there other lines who may excel more? Sure, but the Raven Guard could easily do the role better than some, and I think they get sold short far too often. So, all in all, for me, all the bloodlines of course could do the role, and I think Guilliman would have to use them all for simple political pressure. However, let's be clear, some would be far better suited than others. The standout one for me would undoubtedly be the line of Rogal Dawn, and the line of the Blood Angels not far behind, followed by the Salamanders, and most likely, yes, still the Dark Angels, especially now Lionel Johnson is back. And there are some, such as the line of Russ, and the legacy of Ferrus Manus, that just isn't particularly suited to Guilliman's vision. But what do you think? What Primarch bloodlines could you see excelling in an expanded Tetrarchy? If you had to rank them, how would you place them? And who would your standout choice be? How Guilliman would have loved a loyal line of Fulgrim to perform this kind of role. But as always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.